Hi Piccolos, this is a practice guide to Symphonic Metamorphosis Piccolo part. This whole part is basically a study in trills, it seems like. So anyway, I'm going to start at the beginning and play down, and as I go through, I'll go over fingerings I'm using, things to think about, trill, fingerings, etc. Let's see, so the first line is easy. I'll start at rehearsal A here. The main thing here, the notes are not hard, but the articulations have to be exact. So you have ta ha ta 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 ha ta, ta ya ta ta ha ta, ta 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 ta, just needs to be exact. These trills here, 24. The first one, normal. Second one, you're going to B flat, so just have your thumb on the B flat side. C to D flat, E is normal. High G trill. If you do not have the high G to A trill key here, which makes it a lot easier, but if you do not, the only other fingering that I have found that works is your high G will be in the left hand, first finger and thumb, and your ring finger. And then in the right hand, first trill key, middle finger, and ring finger, no pinky. So that's your fake G, and then you're going to trill the thumb and the first finger simultaneously. It's a difficult trill, but it's the best one. The air stream has to be extremely fast for this trill. I think because this trill is so short, though, it's only a quarter note, you could get away with just first trill key, which just goes to A flat, but I think it would sound just fine. Let me see. Yeah, I would, if you do not have the G to A, just do first trill key, it'll be fine. And then at 41, just scales, tongued, but tongued very short. Very short and like kind of with a hardness to it, or dry. Dry is a better word. Don't try to phrase or make it too legato. Just very German sounding, I think. And then here, 60 or 59. Kata kata. Kata-kata. I would do that, it's clearer. You could do ta-taka, or maybe you could single tongue it. I guess you could single tongue it, but it needs to be very short. 85, just watch the rhythms. So you have 1, 2, da-da-ya, da-da-da-da, 2, and then da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, yum. And then same ideas in the following phrases. Sorry, so G sharp I missed. And that accent, a little bit, da, keep it kind of bell-like. And it's just quiet, you don't need to hide, but it should just sound lighter. And then in the ya, da, 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 I always do I do the middle F sharp fingering. It's just a little cleaner when you have to move quickly from E to F sharp. Ya, ya, da, 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 ba, bum. The next trill here at 100, don't try to trill too much. It's an awkward trill, and then you have to get to the grace notes. And so just even one trill, or, well, maybe one's not enough, but, 2 trills, I guess. Just try to get through it. After G here, again, accents are important. Let's see, I'll play through here. Yeah, so yum ba ba. I think I did the accents more with vibrato and very short. Yep ba ta ta. Okay, and then as like the beginning, the articulation is very important. So you might need to go through this phrase very slowly and make sure you're re-articulating in exactly the right spots. And then speed it up from there. And then this next trill, make sure you're trilling to F sharp. So you have E sharp, which is F, and then this trill is tricky. So you play the E sharp, which is F, and then you go to an F sharp, and then you keep that F sharp key down, and then you wiggle. And you have to do all that in a quarter note. So it's da, yeah, and then you land on F sharp, which is nice. That makes it a little easier. So you have trill, yeah, ba da 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 trill, and then it's the same trill, but it's written F natural to G flat, but it's the same idea. Make sure the air through the high notes stays fast and your embouchure doesn't let go of its, I hate to use the word grip, but because you don't want to like death grip on the airstream, but just make sure your embouchure has got a hold of the airstream. And if you do like that, the piccolo fart, as we call it, that means you're gripping down too hard onto your air, but you have to keep that air fast. Okay, that's the first movement. And the second movement here at the beginning, we're with the clarinet. Okay, and then the next phrase here with the flute, so you just have to very much be listening and blend. And then, oh yeah, here after C, same thing, I believe still with the flutes, holding that B flat. You could do an alternate if you find that your B flat is not high enough. It's just like regular B flat, thumb on the B flat side and the first finger in the left hand, and then add in the right hand, first finger, middle finger, pinky. There's almost no vibrato. And then a lot of figures like this here at 83, where you're trilling down a phrase. So it seems like you could almost wiggle any finger and it'd be fine, but it is really important to do the correct fingering, that you're going to the correct interval. So A to B flat, G to A, that's normal, E flat to F, D to E flat. It doesn't say flat at the top, but I think because the E flat in that measure, or there's a flat next to the E there in that measure, that counts for the note you're going up to in the trill. Geez, is that right? I'm gonna say that that's correct. Maybe listen to a recording to see, but I'm almost 100% sure that that's correct, that you would do D to E flat. Because we can see that down here in the F sharp trill, the note above says natural. So that's meaning that the G sharp before here, you're gonna have to natural it. So going on that, I would say that this E flat counts to go to E flat. I feel like I just talked myself in a circle, but hopefully that made sense. That's so crazy. Yeah, when you get to C, when you're going up quarter notes, probably just one trill or so. I guess you could do whatever trills for the C, because that one's easy. But when you get to the D, I would just do one trill. So blah, trill, da, like that. In summary there, when you have the moving notes, I would just don't get too caught up in the trills, doing too many of them, because you have to keep it moving. Okay, and then moving on B flat to C flat, so you have to do 1 and 1, or you could do the lever. Going through the fingering, G sharp to A natural, so you're fingering G sharp and it's just the ring finger. F sharp to G natural, so F sharp to G. E sharp to F sharp, so that's that one where you start E sharp, which is F, go to F sharp, and then you trill the first finger. And then you have D sharp to E natural, so it's the ring finger in the right hand. C sharp to D natural, first trill key, and then C to D flat, so first finger in the left hand. All right, I'm gonna go through that slow. Okay, and then the hardest part is this bunch of triplets. At least, thank God, you're with all the winds, I think, or you're kind of buried. You're in the middle register, so you're not screaming way on top for everyone to hear any little missed note you might have. It's just hard in that it just seems like at times a bunch of random notes. I'll play through once and then I'll go back, go through a few practice strategies. There's two in particular that I like to do with passages like this. And then you have a bunch of trills. Try to get a good breath at M. And it's ideal, I think, if you can do the whole thing in one breath, all the way to N, because there's really nowhere to breathe. If you need to breathe, just take out a note somewhere, like one you don't like, just breathe there. So I'll start there, and again, using the B flat thumb. I use that as much as possible. The tempo marked is 96, but that seems fast. So I think it only normally goes 84-ish, which is fast enough being how weird it is at times. Some practice strategies. My favorite way to practice like continuous notes is to just do one grouping of the note plus a connecting note, one grouping of the note plus a connecting note, like all the way through. through that and then through M. And then I would expand, like do 2 sets of triplets and then the connecting note and stop there. Actually, let me do the M section. That's the one that's a lot harder. So that's one way to practice. Another way, my favorite, is just start the metronome, the slowest possible tempo where you can play everything perfectly. And this is in 2, by the way. So, ya da 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 da. If I were just starting, I'd probably do this even slower. This is 50. Then there's just nowhere to breathe though if you do that. But I would do that and then just inch up the metronome little by little. Another way to practice this particular section is you could tongue it all too. So because there's, when you're tonguing everything, it's not as forgiving and you know immediately if you've missed a note. Other than that, just try to kind of bring out anything weird, which there's a lot, but pick something that's gonna stand out to you. The first thing for me is about 126. So pickups to 126 is kind of like the new idea. I have that grouped here with this marking and it reminds me it's going down D and C. I found that I had to mark almost every single accidental, that came later, like this D natural. Well, that's just to remember, but things like, where's a good example? Like this E flat up here. Like I mark that because if I don't, I'm going along and all of a sudden I'll second guess myself. Like, because who could say? It could be E natural. I mean, anything goes is what it sounds like. So anyway, that helped me a lot to mark all these things. So I have that set. And then I kind of practice that a bunch by itself. And then here are 2 sets of chromatics. That's how I thought of it anyway. You could come up with your own little arrangement of how you want to think about it. But if I don't think of it like that, then when I get there, it's like, I don't know, my mind just shuts off. If I start back here, pick up to 126, and I just put a little quarter rest or something in between each of my little groupings of how I'm thinking of it in my mind, it would sound like this. Like that is how I have it. And then just you could take out the pauses. The next thing, 128, once you get to those tied, the last note of the tie, it's probably not supposed to be clipped, but I found that I just need to clip it off to get to the next thing right away or I was going to be late. So for instance, coming like the triplet before 128, that's exaggerated, but that's kind of how I thought about it. This section, L through N, just takes a lot of practice, slow practice so you get it in your fingers. Try not to go in your practicing faster than what you can do perfectly. Make sure your mind is ahead of your fingers because it's all muscle memory. Down here, at V, just be aware of the rhythm. You have bump, ya-da-da, on the beat, da-da-si. So I would put the slashes over your main beat so you don't have an unintended solo. And then you have that diminuendo on the C, which can be a little tricky. If your last C that is held, you cannot get it high enough. And I wouldn't, by the way, no vibrato, just ya-ba-ba, you just fade out basically. But there is an alternate C, which is no thumb in the left hand, first finger, middle finger, ring finger, and in the right hand, first finger, ring finger, pinky. Same thing at Y with rhythm. Just make sure you know where your beats are. Yaga-daga-da, 2, 1, daga-daga, 2, 1, 2, yaga-daga, 2, 3. I wouldn't do a breath there before the F's, but I didn't plan ahead. And then the trills, they're all normal trill fingerings. When you get at 277, G, you're going to A flat, so first trill key, and then you just switch over to G sharp, still first trill key. Let me try that again. Last movement, march. Very articulate. Yagadadum, bum, da dum, dum, da 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 dum, ba dum, ba dum. When you get to the trill again, make sure you're going to F flat. So E flat to E natural. So it's the left hand ring finger. Yeah, so this one in there. At the last page, you're coming in the tail end of the flute. The flute does ba-ya-da, 1, 2, 3, add piccolo. So you're adding to what's already been there. So I know it says piano. Don't worry about that too much. Just try to match. So whatever's come before you, just like match, so that mentally you don't get all like afraid of your note, afraid of yourself, which is easy to do on the piccolo. Gradual crescendo, not too much. It's going to naturally crescendo anyway because our notes are going up, so don't worry about the crescendos too much. You could do alternate D flat if your D flat is not high enough. You could do a little bit of vibrato, but it's really kind of this and then to make sure that F comes out, embouchure in the corners, bottom corners, just come up the tiniest amount, just so I kind of close up the hose a little bit, you know, when you have a garden hose and you just like close that to keep the airspeed going and to try to avoid any big bumps. And then here we come back to the march, and now you have to triple tongue. And here after H, we start on the middle of the triplet though, which is a little tricky. So I always do ka ta ta ka ta ta. People do different things. Some people do taka, but to me that's like double tonguing and triple tonguing. Or you could do ta 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 ta. I don't know. I can't do any of that, but ka ta 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 is what I like to do. But just make sure you have a plan, and however you do it like that all the time. That you're consistent, so that all of a sudden you don't come in with the wrong T or K, and because then it's really hard to adjust yourself once you get going. Etc. This last line here, triple tonguing, just very short. I would practice it hyper short, slow, like this. With triple tonguing, even though you're doing it slow. At the very end, I like to do the middle F sharp. Just coming from the E to the F sharp just seems maybe slightly easier. I don't know. It's just more that that's what I'm used to, but you could do regular F sharp, of course. Make sure your pinky in your right hand stays down all the way through the high A here, because the A's don't come out without that pinky. But then it needs to be off, or it's better if it's off for the B flat. And then just work up from that, going a little faster, but with that same idea of it being very, very short and very dry. Lots of little things in this piece for the piccolo. It's a great part, as is the other flute parts, especially the principal flute part. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Love to have you be part of our piccolo community. Thanks for watching this video, and happy practicing.